Barakatay Hawa, Barakatay Hawa Shai, Shalom, to all the Akim out there. Um, Pretty much, uh, today's lesson is pretty much going to be centered around America being Babylon the Great, merchants, finance, etc. I was doing a little research on a few things, going over a couple of scriptures the last couple of days, and I wanted to put this lesson together. I mean, it's a little, it's a little, a little extensive. So I'm gonna, through the spirit of Yahweh Basham Yahushai, I'm gonna try to make it as concise as possible. You know, like I said, the name of the lesson is gonna be America, Babylon the Great, merchants, finance, etc. So it's pretty much gonna be centered around America being Babylon the Great, the merchants, of the earth, of like finance, like finance, the international bankers, the New World Order, because as we know, brothers that's out there that's in the know, that have been awoke and have been watching and learning the scriptures through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai from the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. You know that we've been saying for a while that pretty much ever since the inception of America, ever since America was um, colonized by Esau, the so-called white man, it was set up pretty much as the stepping stones for the New World Order, and that's pretty much their whole agenda. Their agenda is to set up what's known as a New World Order. That's why in the back of your $1 bill, you have Latin writing, and you have an Egyptian pyramid. All of this stuff ties back to a one world government. It all ties back to Egypt, because America is spiritually called Egypt. And as Apostle Tahar had went over, the word for Egypt in the Hebrew is Matazarium, which pretty much simply means bondage. So this place, America, was set up uh, um, for the sole purpose of establishing a one world government or a new world order. And I have some information of a couple of books. Gonna go through a few scriptures, however the Spirit allows it. I'm going to touch a little bit on the beast, NATO, EU, and I tie America into being Babylon the Great, because when you read the scriptures, the Lord said that His words don't go out void. Matter of fact, let's start off with that scripture there. The Lord said His words don't go out void. So we're gonna go. This is the book of Isaiah 55 and 10. It says, "For as the rain cometh down, and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth in bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it." So the Most High set up prophecies in the scriptures of things that were to come, and pretty much as we move on through, as history has moved on, prophecies of the Lord have been fulfilled, but they haven't been fulfilled as much as they're being fulfilled now. Even though you had different time periods where there was prophecies that were being fulfilled, in this time now the prophecies are multiplying. They're coming hard, they're coming heavy, and they're coming fast. Because this is the time where the Lord said that He's going to visit the earth and bring judgment upon it, and He's going to fulfill the prophecies that have yet to be fulfilled, because we're at the time now where the kingdom of Yahushua and the kingdom of Israel is going to be established upon earth, and the whole world is going to know, that we are the Israelites, and we're at that point now. That's why these devils are so scared. That's why they're making, their last ditch attempt to try and destroy this word, by any means necessary, on the flip side of what Malcolm X said. So it said, this is Isaiah 42:8, which Malcolm X, he was lost anyway, but certain things he said were somewhat on point. Isaiah 42:8, I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another. Why did the Lord say that? Because the Most High is the one that spoke about these prophecies that come to pass. And there's not going to be any other God out there or any other name as a higher or Jesus or whatever that's going to take the credit from Yahweh. It says, neither my praise to graven images. Why? Because the Most High is the one that put down these words. Behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. So the Lord said that he's not a man that he should lie. If he spoke something, he's going to make it come to pass. Now, the picture that you seen at the beginning was a picture that a certain individual that used to be in the truth drew this. He was excellent, in drawing, in all those, majority of those signs that you see, he's the one that put those signs together, and this is just a representation of what John saw of the dragon or the beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns. And this is key because this is something that's prophesied and has been written. And when you read through in the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter, when you read in the book of Revelation and certain chapters in Revelation, it speaks about this beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, and that's a major prophecy, because that lets you know that once this beast is set up and set into power, that we're at the time of the end when the Lord is going to finish fulfilling the rest of what's written in Revelation and and certain other parts of the scriptures. Now, I want to start off in the book of Psalm 75, and I'm going to go straight to the point. Psalm 75:5. It says, lift not up your horn on high. Now, the word horn, when you read in the scriptures, represents power. So it's telling these nations not to lift up their power on high. Speak not with a stiff neck. Because remember, Nebuchadnezzar tried to act like he was all that. And what did the Lord do? He humbled him and turned him basically into a beast. It says, for promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. So there's not a council that goes on of these different kings upon the planet Earth, that they set up, okay, well, this particular person is going to be ruling at this particular time, so on and so forth, even though behind the scenes, the secret government controlled by the international bankers sets up puppet leaders. But as far as empires are concerned, those empires are ruling simply for the fact that the Most High had prophesied that they were going to be ruling. As it says, but the Most High is a judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another. So the Most High is the one that puts down kingdoms and sets up kingdoms. Now we're going to go to the book of Daniel 7 and give you the basically like in a nutshell, so to speak. The Lord broke down in the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter, the different kingdoms or empires that will be ruling on the planet, and he gave a list of each one and how they would rule for a certain period of time. And at the end of that rulership, once the last beast came into power and fell, that was around the time when Yahushua was going to come back. And right now we're at the point where Yahushua is about to make his second debut, so to speak, and we're at the point now where this empire called America is about to be totally blasted to hell and back, totally destroyed, because America in the Bible is known as Babylon the Great. And Babylon the Great is that great empire that rules pretty much the whole world. And it was set up as such from its inception with Christopher Columbus or Cristobal Colon, because that was the catapult for the so-called New World Order. All right. So this is Daniel 7:2. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea, that great sea being the Mediterranean Sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Now these beasts here represent kingdoms. I'm going to jump down to the 17th verse to show you that. Daniel 7:17. These great beasts which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. And these four kings were going to have four kingdoms. Okay. So when it speaks about a king, doesn't always necessarily mean a particular king, even though you did have certain individual ones, but a king also represents a kingdom. So when you go back to the second verse, I'm sorry, the third verse, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Now, when Daniel saw this vision, he actually saw four beasts come up out of the earth, out of the sea, but he didn't understand what that vision represented. So what he did was he wrote down what the Lord told him to write down, because at that time, Daniel was meant to write the vision. He wasn't meant to really understand the majority of the visions that he saw, because that was given to us in these times to know and understand what these visions meant, because we're at the point now of the fulfillment or the end of these visions. So it says the first was like a lion, which the lion represents the Assyrio Babylonian Empire, because when before the Babylonians came into power, you had the Assyrians that were in power, and they came into power into prominence as an empire, and then the Babylonian Empire was there, so they ruled conjointly. It says the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. That was the Assyrian Empire. And I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. And how were the wings thereof plucked? When the Babylonians came in and took them down. And it was lifted up from the earth and made a stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And this represented Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire, because that was their time to rule. The Egyptians ruled at one point and they fell. The Assyrians came into rulership, then they fell. Then the Babylonians came into rulership. It says, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. Now this second beast, which is the bear, represented the Medo-Persian Empire. Okay. It says, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. And when it devoured much flesh, because it took over the known world back then from the Babylonians. So that empire of the Babylonians fell, and the Medo-Persian Empire was set into power. Why? Because it was the time of the Medo-Persian Empire to rule. And after this, and I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. Now this leopard, this beast, the leopard, which is the third kingdom, represented Alexander the Creep and the Greek Empire, because that's how that was the next kingdom in succession to rule. And when you check out the history, it was Alexander the Creep that devastated the Persian Empire and subdued it, and the Greeks came into power after that, and they took over all of those regions where the Babylonians were ruling, and before them, where the Medo-Persians were ruling, and before them, where the Babylonians and the Syrians were ruling. It says, which had up upon the back of it four wings of a fowl, and the beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it. And some of you brothers know what that means. I'm not going to break every little point down, because it'll take forever to get through these scriptures. It says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast. Now this fourth beast represents the Roman Empire. That was the fourth empire that was to rule upon the earth, So there was a succession. So the Romans ruled jointly with the Greeks. So they was known as a Greco-Roman Empire. And around 30 BC or so, around there, with the last Cleopatra and the last Ptolemy, they were pretty much absolved into the Roman Empire, and it just became known as the Roman Empire, the fourth beast. Dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth that represented their military. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now these 10 horns represented, a power structure that they had back then, these were European nations that were in league with the ancient Roman Empire, and they went under ancient names such as the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths and the Heruli and the Anglo-Saxons and the Lombards and the Franks or Gauls, and so on and so forth. There was 10 major ones that were in league with the ancient Roman Empire. But then once the ancient Roman Empire fell, they fell with it, and eventually, in process of time, they came back into power. Which Lord's will, we're going to get to that. It says, so those 10 horns today, in the revival of the Roman Empire, came back as the EU, which it was at the beginning was the EEC, the European Economic Community, which was established, which was it started in March of 1957, but it didn't get its charter until January 1st, 1958, and the entity, for lack of better words, that set them up was the Club of Rome. You know why? Because that was the Lord setting up Rome again to set this beast back up into power once America was established. Because remember, America was established first, and then all these other things started falling into place. It's all true to prophecy. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Now, this little horn, when you read in Daniel 7, the little horn is speaking about America. But then when you read in Daniel, the 8th chapter, the little horn is speaking about Antiochus Epiphanes, because by this time, by the time the Roman Empire was established, the Greek Empire had already fallen. So this particular little horn wasn't speaking about Antiochus Epiphanes. It was speaking about America. Okay? It says, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And those 3 horns, when you go into the history, was the Spanish-American War, the French-American War, and the War of Independence with England. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things, because they're saying they're the Most High, they're Yahushua, they're the angels, they're the prophets, they're the Israelites, all manner of lies. All right. Now we're going to jump down to the 23rd verse, and it says, thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, and it's breaking it down, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms and shall devour the whole earth. Now, at that particular time, the Roman Empire didn't devour the whole earth. But when they came back into power, now they have the whole earth in their hand, because they didn't control this side of the world, the so-called Americas, Canada, and all that. They didn't control this side of the world. They only controlled the known world, or the known kingdom at that time, which was mainly surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. Those were the strong points, of the different empires that ruled, because that was where pretty much, if you control those seaports, you pretty much control everything, because you control what's coming in and what's going out. And that's all controlled through commerce. It says, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And they did arise, which, like I said, in the ancient world, they arose. But then when they came back, they arose again in this time. And it's not speaking about actually 10 kings. It's talking about 10 European nations, which is today is called the European Union. It says, and another shall rise after them, which the one that rose after them is America. It says, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, because when America came into power, they took down three of the empires that were controlling this side of the world, America, which was the Spanish, the French, and the British. It says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until the time and times and the dividing of times, which we're in that time right now. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. So now they're saying, when this 4th beast is in power, what's going to happen in the process of time is they're going to be destroyed, and that's talking about in this time right now. All right. and like I said, when you go into the scriptures and you go into the history, you know, once the four kingdoms were set up, everybody, well, not everybody, but people that know about world history and the history of empires know that there was four major empires, beginning with the Babylonians all the way up to the Romans. Okay, so now let's go from there to the book of Revelation. I'm gonna go to the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, because this is another book in the book of Revelation that speaks about these this beast, you know, that with the 10 with the 7 heads and the 10 horns. This is Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. So the Apostle John actually saw actual beast come up out of the sea. And I'm not, you know, we're not saying that this is the actual beast, but it was similar to that, because it was a beast that rose up and it had 7 heads and it had 10 horns. And he actually saw that. It says, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy, because they, since they've been established on the planet Earth, they pretty much deceived the world. And one of the main deceptions is that they teaching the world that they're the Most High, that they're Yahweh, that they're the people of the Lord, that they're the angels, that they're all the great people of history. Pretty much nothing but a bunch of lies. Since the time that they've taken over, their whole thing was all about deception. It says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Now it's going back in time and to give a scenario of what took place. So now the leopard represents Alexander the Creep, and it represents the Greek Empire, because that was the beginning of the rulership of Esau on the planet. It began with the Greeks. You know, you had the 7 heads. You had the Greeks. You know, you had the Romans. You had the Spanish. You had the French. You had Germania Major, Germania Minor, and British. And the British, the English. You know, those are the seven heads, and those are all Edomite powers. That's why when the Lord showed this particular beast to John, he described it as being a red beast. There was a reason why the Most High didn't make it a black beast or a brown beast or a yellow beast or a green beast or a purple, you know, whatever. The Lord specifically told John to make it a red beast. He actually showed him a red beast. Why? Because that represented Esau or Edom, the so-called white man. That was synonymous with them, with their color. It says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear. Now, the reason why I spoke about it is first spoke about the leopard, because that was the beginning of the kingdom. Now we come into the end of the kingdom. It says, and his feet were as the feet of a bear. The feet of one is the end of them. And that bear, in the ancient world, which this is dealing in the future, but in the ancient world, that bear was when you read Daniel 7, that was the Medieval Persian Empire. But this is talking about a future prophecy, which the people that are in the land that was governed by the Medes now are the so-called Russians, which are Edomites. They're in that land now, so that's going to be the end of this place. So that same region of land that the Medes were living in, now Russia occupies it, and Russia just so happens to be the power, the other superpower, along with other allies, that's going to destroy America and the land of Israel. So this is the end of the beast. It says, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the mouth of a lion represents England, because England is the one that birthed America. And most people think that after that a war of independence, that America was freed from the clutches of England, but not so. America is still a part of England. You know, the laws and the money and all of that, they're all still linked up to England, because England is the mother of America. They're the ones that gave birth to America. Why? Because that was part of prophecy. Because Britain or England was the 7th head, and then out of that 7th head came the next head, which was the 8th, which was America. You know, it says it says, and the dragon, which is the Roman Empire, gave him his power and his seat and great authority, because the Roman Empire was the 4th beast, and they had that power, and the Lord gave them that power. You know, so now with all the allies that they had back then, all those allies ruled jointly with the Romans, because the Romans were the power. Just like today, they're the power. They're the ones that set this whole thing back up. But they had to have a starting point, which was America, when it was set up by Christopher Columbus to set up this so-called New World Order. It says, Dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority, and they have great authority. Now, it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. Now, this head was wounded during a time when the Roman Empire started to fall. You know, you had different, we're starting to learn now that you had more Jake emperors, you know, in Rome before Septimius Severus. You know, you had Marcus Aurelius, Commodus, Vitellius. You know, so you had slowly but surely, as time went on, the Roman Empire started crumbling, and pretty much it fell, you know, beginning around 180 A.D. with Marcus Aurelius, Commodus, and others, you know, and when it really took a dive, a real serious dive, was during the time when Constantine decreed that the religion of the Roman Empire now was going to be Christianity, which was pretty much sun worship, but people back then didn't understand it, you know. So that at that point, Jake was pretty much in power and controlling and ruling everything. Okay, so that beast, that part of the prophecy when they fell, was fulfilled during that time period. And it wasn't until 1,000 years into the future when they were going to be able to come back into power. It says, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And then when the deadly wound was healed, was after that 1,000-year period when they fell, when Israel started falling and Esau started getting back up in there. That's why they called it the Renaissance period, or the rebirth. Why? Because that was Esau coming back into power, true to prophecy, which were the Romans, which were the Edomites. They were the Romans that the Lord prophesied that were going to come back into power, because they fell prior to that. All right. It says, and all the world wondered after the beast. And before I read on, I want to go to Revelation 20, because that's the first thing these devils did, was they changed everything. You know, when you go back into the history, into the architecture and the frescoes and paintings, you know, of Europe, they were all changed from the original to the fake. The fake being the Renaissance art, you know, which is a term called iconoclasm, which is a defacing of the images. So this is Revelation 20:1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And this key represented slavery. Okay. The bottomless pit represents Europe, because there's a lack of mineral resources there. It says, and the key and the great chain. Well, the key represents they have the Lord had the ability to put him in slavery and take him out of slavery. All right. So once the Lord put him in slavery, it says, and a great chain in his hand, because the Lord set up these devils to fall, the pagan Roman Empire, and they were, for a period of 1,000 years, they were in subjection to Jake. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. And pretty much this is dealing with the history of the so-called white man, the Romans, the Greeks, and all of that, which are Edomites. And they were bound for that 1,000-year period. It says, and cast them into the bottomless pit, because they were still in Europe, but they were being treated like Jake is treated here in America, you know, always brought into the court systems, you know, in the jails and all of that, you know. It says, and shut him up and set a seal upon him. So the Lord sealed him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. Why? Because that was his prison sentence. He couldn't do what he was created to do, which was to be the devil and the deceiver. Right? It says, and after that, he must be loosed a little season. And he was loosed a little season, you know, a little over 500 years, you know, that he's been loosed. Maybe a little longer than that, but that's around the time period where he has been loosed. All right. Now jump down to the 7th verse. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. And that's exactly what he did. As soon as they came out of the cave, they didn't waste no time. They just started going. It's like they were programmed. Like they were, one minute they were slaves, and the next minute they woke up and just started grabbing paint brushes and paint and just started painting over all the images in Europe. Started breaking certain ones of them, destroying certain ones of them. The ones that they couldn't cover up, they started breaking off the noses and the lips, and just painting over. It's like they had, which it was, they had a spirit on them from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai to do that. Why? To fulfill the prophecies of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So now this was the time when they had to come back into power. Now keep in mind, this is the fourth beast that fell, that had a deadly wound, but that deadly wound got healed after 1,000 years, and then they started slowly but surely coming back into power where they were at before. And they were doing the same thing they were doing back then. All right. Now this is going back to Revelation 13 and 11. I'm sorry, I'm going to read 4. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast. The dragon is a Roman Empire. The beast is the UN. I'm sorry, not the UN, NATO, and their allies, saying who was like unto the beast and who was able to make war with him. And that's a hellified army there. All them different European countries, America, Canada, and all that, all into one. That's a hell of a fighting force, for any other human on the planet to be able to fight against them. You have to come strapped. You have to have some serious backing in order to make war with them. All right. Now I'm going to jump down to the 11th verse. It says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. Now this is after the beast was wounded with a deadly wound. Now this beast is the Roman Empire coming back up into power, but it started through America. You had America, then once America was established for the New World Order, then Rome, the Treaty of Rome or the Club of Rome, they started setting back up that ancient power of those different nations, and it didn't really started coming to pass till like 1949. When they first had set up NATO, and then about 10 years later, that's when they set up the EEC, the European Economic Community, which later became the European Union, because the reason why they're making these unions is because they're trying to make it easier to bring everything into one. So if they can unify each so-called continent, Europe, Asia, Africa, America, so on and so forth, then it'll be easier to merge them all together when the time comes. These devils, they're devious, man. It says, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. The two horns like a lamb represents the two opposing factions, which pretty much is the same party system, the so-called Democrats and Republicans. And he spake as a dragon, because a dragon is known for his fierceness. Now, one thing about America, when they go into these different countries that are from democracy, you either take democracy or you take the sword. They're not playing. And that democracy goes back to what? To the ancient Roman Empire, that so-called democracy and republic and all that. It says, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. So when America came back into power, and the Club of Rome set up the European Economic Community, or the European Union, and NATO, they all came back in the force of that first beast. Why? Because that first beast, where did they get their power from? They got their power from the Roman Empire, because that was the Roman Empire, which the Most High gave them that power to stamp down and to any nation that rose up against them, to put them down. It says, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. And how did they cause them to worship the first beast? By setting up everything the same way it was set up in Rome, through their law, the legislation. There's legislation, the Roman numerals, the laws being written in Rome, in the Latin terms, and the democracy, the succession of the presidents, which the Roman Empire was diverse, because they didn't have a succession of kings as other empires had before them. But what they had was an election every year, every like 4 years or so, and they would elect a new president based off of that, and not based off the old king succession of the king and the prince, of his son, and so on and so forth. It says whose deadly wound was healed. And when their deadly wound was healed, was when they started coming back up into power during the Renaissance. It says, so we're far beyond into the healing of that deadly wound. Now we're at the point where this beast, this beast is about to fall again. It says, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And this used to be broken down as Hiroshima and Nagasaki when Esau dropped that bomb, but that wasn't dealing with that, because this is speaking about the beast. The beast wasn't in power at that time, because the beast is NATO. NATO didn't come to pass until about 4 years after that whole situation took place. So it's that's not it. Even though they did send fire from the heaven through them planes, but that wasn't it. It was when NATO had they dropped their bombs on I believe it was Serbia, Herzegovina, when they were fighting against the Albanians. That was the first time when the NATO, that beast, had dropped a fire from heaven. That was the very first time. So that's what this is referring to. It says, and he deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, because that's all they do is deceive. All right, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast. Now, what is the image to the beast? The image to the beast is basically the image of the Roman Empire, the way their society was set up. The homosexuality, the Senate, the House of Representatives, the presidents, the way they're set up, the two opposing parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and the same caste system that they had back then, the plebeians and the patricians, and so on and so forth. They just have different names today. So it's pretty much the standard of the Roman Empire is pretty much here in America, is just under different names. It says, which had the wound by a sword and did live, because they did live after that wound. So we're living in the time of the revival of the ancient Roman Empire, America being the head of that, and being the catapult, so to speak, for this so-called New World Order. And that's why they've been pushing so hard ever since this country was established, but it took a process of time, because the Lord had a purpose, and the Lord has prophecies that have to be fulfilled. So if the prophecies of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua are not fulfilled, these devils are not going to be able to do shit. It says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And that's pretty much what's happening. The image of the beast, if you don't conform to these devils, the Lord, if you don't conform to these devils and to their so-called New World Order, their plans is to destroy people. Do not they have the Georgia Guidestones? And is not the first so-called commandment of the Georgia Guidestones, it's to maintain humanity under 500 million? Are there not presently over 7 billion people on the planet? So you're talking about more than 6.5 billion people they plan to wipe out to keep a smaller number so that it'd be easier for them to control. So these devils, they're very devious. They know what they're doing, and we're at that point now. That's why we're at the point where our salvation is nearer than when we believed, and we come into that time frame. Okay, now I got something real quick. Now, this is a book that I bought years ago. I kind of went into it. You might not really be able to see it that well, because this is the only picture I was able to actually find of it. I guess the book is so old that they don't even hardly recognize it. But it's called The Revived Roman Empire and the Beast of the Apocalypse by N.W. Hutchings. Okay? And in the introduction, it says, the image of Daniel, the the second chapter envisioned only 4 empires. The fourth empire, Rome, was to endure until its clay feet were pulverized by the return of Yahushai. After 1945, 10 nations out of the old federated Rome are prophesied to come together and reform imperial Rome as it was in the days that Yahushua was crucified. It goes on to say in chapter 1, it says, Rome rises again. It says, there is no more certain truth in Bible prophecy than the revival of the Roman Empire, which is pretty much the Bible is truth, all truth. Rome was in power when Yahushua came the first time, and it will again be in power when the Lord comes the second time. And keep in mind, going way back, High Priest Ariah was in the other high priest, and at the time, when Apostle Tar was a high priest, they were teaching this way before this book even came out. It says, and it will again be in power when the Lord comes the second time. For centuries, even as Europe stood hopelessly divided and embroiled in seemingly endless wars, students of prophecy have stood firm in their conviction that 10 nations, which were once within the geographic, political, and religious boundaries of Rome, would again form a federation of states. This federation, I'm going to skip that because they go off about the Antichrist. So, like I said, they go off, but there's certain points in here that they make that are pretty good. It is of major importance to realize that the common market, according to the New Columbia Encyclopedia, came into being on March 25th, 1957, at the invitation of Rome, and the first meeting was held in the Vatican itself. 6 of the present common market member nations attended the first historic meeting. Dr. J.A. Seiss, the noted Christian author, foresaw the revival of Rome in conjunction with the rise of Babylon from his vantage point in history. More than 130 years ago, 1860, he made the following observation in his book, The Apocalypse. Think for a moment, for there is such a power that is everywhere clamoring for a common code, a common currency, common weights and measures, and which is not likely to be silenced or to stop till it has secured a common center on its own independent basis, whence to dictate to all countries and to exercise its own peculiar rule on all the kings and nations of the earth. That power is commerce, the power of the ephah and the talent. So pretty much, the New World Order, the establishment of it will be through commerce, through money. That's why Maya Amschel Rothschild made a statement. He said, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes the laws. Why? Because if you control the money, you pretty much control everything. Finance controls everything. Finance controls wars. Finance controls commerce. Finance controls, and like the scriptures say, money answereth all things. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get that real quick. Let me just pull up another tab. It says, money answereth all things. That's Ecclesiastes. I believe it's the 10th chapter. Right here, Ecclesiastes 10:19. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. So money is pretty much what makes the world go round in this society, and that's why they've been so hell bent on setting up the so-called central banks in America, which they had set up too prior to the Federal Reserve System. Why? Because they want to control the issuance of the money, so that they can control the laws and everything else that governs this society, because the New World Order is all based off of one currency, one religion, one way of thinking, everything done as one, because they're just like the ancient Babylonian Empire tried that, and what happened? They failed. Just like Antiochus Epiphanes tried a one world order, and what happened? That failed. Why? Because the Most High is not with it. And this society, when it was set up, one of the phrases of America is what? The melting pot. And the melting pot was what? It was a diversity of people coming together as one. There's a Latin phrase that they have on a dollar bill, and before that, e pluribus unum, you know, and e pluribus unum simply means out of many, one. So if my feed went out, so if you brothers could still hear me, Babakusha, just let me know that y'all brothers could hear me, because the actual video went out, so I'm not sure if it's still going or not. I mean, it's saying that it's still on air, but if y'all brothers could just drop me a line real quick. Okay, all right. So that was pretty much it. So pretty much America is known as that so-called melting pot, you know, and that melting pot, when you go back in history, when you go back to when you go back to Genesis the 11th chapter, the reason why Babylon was called Babylon was because the Lord said he confounded the languages there. So you had, and there was, because they were, I'm gonna read it, Genesis 11:1. And the whole earth was a one language and a one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So Nimrod was the first guy that tried to establish a new world order, a one world order. We believe that Obama is Nimrod in the reincarnation. Now, whether they keep him in there or not, it doesn't matter, because he already did what he was supposed to do. He already set up the different legislations and all. He pretty much handed them the so-called New World Order in spades. But what they're not counting on is Yahweh Bashem Yahushai coming to destroy them. You know, that's something that nobody could put in spades for them. Why? Because the Most High already prophesied that He gonna destroy this place. All right. It says, and they said one to another, go to, let us make brick. I'm just, you know, just for in the interest of time, I want to just jump down to the point. It says 6, and Yahweh said, behold, the people is one, see, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is a name called Babel. And the word Babel is a Hebrew word, babal, which means confusion. It says, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. So America now has a conglomeration of all these different people. It was called the melting pot, you know, because you have people of different creeds and of different languages and different nationalities that came here. And that's the reason why the Lord allowed that, because the Lord said that this is Babylon the Great. Now, with that being said, let's go to Revelation chapter 18, and we're going to start at the first verse. And, you know, I'm going to go as long as the Spirit allows me to go. You know, I mean, like I said, I got a lot of scriptures here, you know, a lot of points to make. So if I don't get to them, you know, Lord's will, I mean, I go as long as, you know, as the Spirit allows me. And if I don't get to all of them, you know, Lord's will, maybe I could do like a second part to this, you know, depending on the Spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, this is Revelation 18:1. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every fallen, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. But the point in this is Babylon the Great, okay? Because this is going into the destruction of Babylon the Great. But there was an inception of when it was established and it was set up, you know. But here, the Lord showed John, Apostle John, the destruction of this particular place called Babylon the Great. All right. Now, what I want to do is see Babylon the Great here is dealing with so-called America, which so-called America is the part of the revival of the ancient Roman Empire, and this place America, which is also known as Babylon the Great, Babylon is also synonymous with Esau, the Edomites. Matter of fact, let's go from there to our Psalms chapter 137 and 7. It says, remember, O Lord, the children of Edom, the Edomites, the so-called white man, in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon. So the Most High is calling Esau the daughter of Babylon. Why? Because you had the ancient Babylon, but then now you have the modern day Babylon, which is Babylon the Great, which is America, which is the daughter of that ancient, those ancient empires. It says, O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. Why? Because when America was set up, they were set up to be destroyed. We read in Daniel, the 7th chapter, that when this particular matter of fact, let me just get it real quick. When this particular beast was in power, there was going to come a little horn out of it, which is America. And it says Daniel 7:26, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. Why? Because the purpose that the Lord had for America to be set up was to be destroyed and to show the world, what happens when you become wicked. Now, the so-called international bankers' reason for setting up America was to set it up for their so-called New World Order, so that they can rule the whole world by their hand, by their money, by their rules, so on and so forth. But the Most High, that's not the Most High's plans, although he's allowing them to do certain of them things. All right, so it says, O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. The reason why America was set up, Esau was set up in America, was so that America can be destroyed. Happy shall it be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us, which they're going to get double according to what they put us through. All you got to do is go back in the history and see what they did to the so-called Latin tribes, to the so-called Native American Indian tribes, and to the so-called the Southern Kingdom, so-called Negroes, West Indians, and Haitians. And all of that is going to come back on them. And the things that we know is just part of what they did. There's a lot of shit that they've done that we don't even know about. So the Lord knows all of that. So they're going to pay for all of that pretty much. It says, happy shall it be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. So the Lord equated Esau with the daughter of Babylon, and he said that they would be destroyed. Now, let me get the Apocrypha, right? And we'll go to 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, and the 7th verse, and it says, just bear with me 1 second. Some of it will get cut off, but you brothers, you can follow along in your Apocrypha. 2nd Ezra 6 and 7. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times, or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? So Ezra wanted to know when the end of the world was going to come to pass. And this is what the Lord said. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So the Lord said that when Esau is ruling on the earth, we're going to be at the time of his demise, of his destruction. So right now, Babylon the Great is in power. The Edomites are in power. So this is the time when this final empire, or this fourth beast, or this revival of that fourth beast is going to be destroyed. So that's the time that we're living in. We're in the time of this devil going down. We're in the last empire, and the last part of that fourth beast. We're in the time of the toes, the 10 toes, which is Europe right now in total financial chaos. So everything ties together with the scriptures. Everything ties together with the prophecies that the Lord spoke of in the scriptures. All right. So now let's go from there to Isaiah, the 47th chapter, to tie in some more of America with Babylon. Isaiah 47:1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. So now this is not talking about ancient Babylon. This is talking about a virgin daughter of Babylon. You know, because America, there has really never been like a world war or a nation that pretty much came to this side of the world and invaded the whole of the so-called United States. You know, even though you had Pearl Harbor, but that was just on the outskirts. You know, they never really came on land. You know, like America does to these different countries. They go into their land and actually invade their lands. You know, like other nations do. America hasn't been touched like that. Why? Because the Lord didn't allow them to do that, because the Lord wanted all of that iniquity to just keep building and building and building. Just like he did to the Canaanites. He didn't judge the Canaanites right away, because Israel was still growing, was going to grow in Egypt. So by the time Israel was ready to come out of Egypt, the Canaanites were ripe to be plucked out of that land. Same thing with America. So America never paid for all the wickedness that they've done, because the Lord is saving them for the very end. All right. It says, sit on the ground, there is no throne, because the throne is going, that crown is going to be smacked right off of America's head. It says, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Why? Because when this place is destroyed, it's going to be totally wiped off the face of the earth. There's not going to be anything left. Now, that didn't happen to ancient Babylon. Now, when you look at pictures of ancient Babylon, you'll see certain places where you have ruins, like you see in some of these pictures, and you see certain places where they still have, where they have monuments and buildings that they've built there. Now, the Lord said when this place goes down, that there's not going to be any inhabitant here. You still see people walking up and down in ancient Babylon. When America is totally destroyed, you're not going to have any of that. You're not going to have people walking up and down in the Babylonian Empire. See, you still got buildings that have been built there. The Lord said once this place is destroyed, it's not going to be ever inhabited ever again. So that's how we know that Babylon over there in Iraq is not talking about Babylon the Great in the book of Revelation. All right. So now it says, O daughter of the Chaldees, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Now what I want to do is go to the book of Isaiah 14. All right. Which I have here. Isaiah 14, and I'm going to start at the 4th verse, but you know what? I'm going to start at the 3rd verse. It says, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. Because remember, for a period of 350 years, and even prior to that, when the other tribes were catching hell under the Spaniards, those Edomites, and Gad was catching it from other Edomites. You know, after that time period, when the Lord was about to deliver us from that, this is what the Lord said was going to take place. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord, Salakia, shall give thee rest from thy sorrow. So when the Lord is about to give us rest from this hellhole that we're in, and from thy fear, which is part of the curses, and from the hard bondage, which is slavery, wherein thou was made to serve, when the Lord is ready to deliver us out of that completely, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. We're going to be out there speaking and telling America, Babylon the Great, and their leaders and the international bankers, so on and so forth, that they're going down. It says, and say, how have the oppressors ceased? The golden city ceased. Now, what I did, because I have one of those red Bibles, King James, ancient King James version red Bible that we got from the Jehovah Wickedness, and when you look up the word golden city in there, it says what it says for golden city, which we'll get real quick, is the word madahaba or madaba. It says boisterous, raging behavior, boisterous behavior. But this is the point that caught my eye. Golden city, exactness of gold. because in the red edition of the red Bible that we have, in the margin it says, in the precept it says, exactress of gold. Now it says here exactness of gold, right? We'll tie it in real quick, and then you go up here. It says, how has the oppressor ceased? Now oppressor can be somebody that beats you, that puts you in slavery, that rapes your woman, that puts your children in slavery, that separates you, that makes you work hard till you drop dead. That's an oppressor. But an oppressor is also one that financially oppresses you, because these devils these devils are financially oppressing Jake in this hellhole, which we're gonna get. But before I go into that, Salaki, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but before I go into that, what I want to do is I want to go to the book of Isaiah 13, because I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I want to go to Isaiah 13:1, because the point here being that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how had the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? So we're supposed to be out there cursing this devil out, right? This is Isaiah 13:1. It says, the burden of Babylon, which is America, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see. Lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain. The banner is the scriptures, the Bible. The high mountain is America, because a mountain represents a government. And the reason why it's high is because it is exalted over all other governments. It says, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand. And that's what we do when we go out there. We exalt the voice and we shake the hand. And how do we exalt the voice and shake the hand? By pretty much bringing up all the wickedness that they've done and tied it into the scriptures and showing them that, look, you're going down. You're the Edomites. You're Babylon the Great. You're the revival of the ancient Roman Empire. Your destiny and your future is going to be slavery. And all of that. It says that they may go into the gates of the nobles, for the purpose of them going to the gates of the nobles and saying, look, you got to do something about these people out here in the streets. These so-called Negroes, these Latinos, they out there, talking down to us, saying this, that, and the other. They're offending us. You got to get them off the streets. And that's why you have all this stuff going on, with the so-called homegrown terrorism and different situations going on with the so-called Black Hebrew Israelites, because they're trying their hardest to get us off the streets, but that's not going to happen, And when the time comes for them to do that, then the Lord said He's going to lift up a standard against them. It says that they may go into the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my sanctified ones. The sanctified ones are what? The prophets that are going to go out there and teach. They're not going to sell out. They're going to go out there and teach and break it down and tell them exactly how. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're not going to spare nobody's feelings. I have also called my mighty ones for my anger, which are the angels, even them that rejoice in my highness. All right, so now go from there back to Isaiah 14. I'm sorry, let me get one more. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 8. It says, and then shall that wicked be revealed. It says, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, which is what we're doing when we go out there in the streets. That's why it's important to be out in the streets. Yeah, the studio shows, sit downs, that's beautiful. You can edify more, because when you're out there, it's more fast paced. And in the studio, and when you're doing sit downs, you're able to structure it, a little better through the spirit of Yahweh Shemel Shai, but out there it's just fast paced, and pretty much it's in their face. It says, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And the brightness of his coming is Yahweh Shai with the chariots and the angels shooting lasers at them, and also the so-called nuclear missiles that's going to destroy this devil. It says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, which is the adversary, with all power and signs and lying wonders. And you see all that. Everything that they have is nothing but set up for lying wonders, powers and signs. Everything that they have is all about deception, and they're going to come to you as an angel of light. They're not going to come to you, they're not going to say I'm the devil. They're not going to come like devilish, in your face. They're going to come like a so-called gentleman. As Apostle Gabar always quotes, I believe it's Shakespeare that said that the devil or the prince of darkness will come to you as a gentleman or something to that effect, because they can't come the other way because people would expect it. They got to come unexpectedly because they're the deceiver. All right, now let's go back to Isaiah 14. It says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how have the oppressors ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the ruler. So the Lord is bringing them down. That's why that scepter that represents rulership is broken down. Everything is falling apart and they're trying to keep it all together. That's why they want to establish a so-called New World Order. So now, like I said, when you go to the word golden city, Madaba, which is golden city, exactness of gold. When you go to the root word, it means gold, from the word dahab, which really goes to the word zahab, which the word zahab is gold, a precious metal. But the point here, the golden city ceased, meaning the exactness of gold. Now, the word exactness pretty is by exacting these payments. That's why the scripture say that we would be subject to payments. That's part of the curse, being subject to payments under these devils. So they're the ones that got us, all these so-called Americans. They got them. How? They got them in some serious debt. They got them in that serious debt that they can't get out of. Why? Because it was all established through what is called the Federal Reserve System, which pretty much drained the economy and jacked up the economy of so-called America. All right. So now, and the purpose for them doing that pretty much is the purpose for them doing that pretty much was for the purpose of gaining power of the whole world. Because let me get Habakkuk. So like I know I'm a little all over the place, but just bear with me. This is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, and I'm gonna start at 4. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. This is dealing with Esau, because although they're lifted up because they're proud, they're lofty, their spirit still ain't right, because they were created to be the wicked. It says, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, that's his different philosophies. He is a proud man, that's Esau, neither keepeth at home, because this devil could not stay here. And if you look on a map, you'll see all the different regions of the earth where these devils have military bases, U.S. military bases on. They're always occupying somebody's land, always looking for ways to steal people's resources. It says, who enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death and cannot be satisfied. So they can't be satisfied no matter how much they get. They can gain the whole world and they still want more, because once they gain the whole world and gain all the monetary wealth they want, the next thing is control of the people. And then who knows after that? But Barakatah Yahweh Bashem Yahshai, that he's going to bring this devil down, because this devil is a straight up demon. These Edomites are straight up demons. But gathereth unto him all nations, which is what? A new world order, one world government. And heapeth unto him all people. And that's here in America, the so-called melting pot. E pluribus unum, out of many one. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him? And a taunting proverb against him? Even the nations are going to be snapping on this devil and cursing them out. As it tells you also in the book of Isaiah 14. And say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? So how long these devils going to do that? Go around the world and take this stuff? Well, until the Lord take his ass down, which is soon. and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Now, thick clay, which Apostle Paul brought this out, is from the Hebrew word ibatyat, which means a heavy debt. Now, how did they accumulate this heavy debt? Well, they accumulated it through something called the so-called Federal Reserve. And I'm going to come back to this, but I want to read this real quick. This is from a book called The New Babylon. And to keep in mind, these devils, they go off, but it said the New Babylon, those who reign supreme, the Rothschild Empire, the modern-day Pharisees, which they're going off on that, and the historical, religious, and economic origins of the New World Order. And this is pretty much, how they set it up, and I mean, it's a lot of reading. I just read a chapter just to see if I could find some stuff. I didn't really find too much, but I just found a few good points. I mean, I wouldn't really even waste my time reading this book. I just wanted to bring out a few points out of here and move on. It says, this is on chapter 7. The Rothschilds and America, first a colony, then the engine of imperial power. The Rothschilds sent an agent by the name of Schoenberg to New York in 1837, but Schoenberg changed his name to August Belmont. And they always had agents going all the way back to the beginning of this country. One of them being Solomon, I forget his last name, Solomon something, that financed those so-called presidents and congressmen, senators, and all that crap back then. But this is another guy, and he changed his name to August Belmont because he wanted to sound more American. That's what them devils do. They change their name. During the time that Belmont was consolidating the Rothschild Empire placed on American soil, the Rothschilds were establishing offices throughout the American South for the purpose of wool purchases that were then shipped onto France and marketed. Why? Because they wanted to control the money of this place, but they had to control everything first. That's why they started buying up everything. The different media outlets, railroad, oil, mineral resources, electricity, all of that, gas, natural gas. They wanted control of everything because they wanted to control everything. Why? For monetary gain, so that they can set up their new world order. Likewise, the Rothschild family were buying up tobacco harvests. Rothschild controlled ships, carried enormous cargoes between the United States and France, and that's how the world became rich from America, Babylon the Great, because they were able to ship their goods to this. They make the goods in their country and ship them over here to America, Babylon the Great, to sell them for a greater price. It says the record shows that it was indeed the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1913 that set in place a framework for further expansion of Rothschild control over American finance and industry, because it goes back to what Maya Angelou Bauer said: give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws thereof. Now, the so-called President Thomas Jefferson said, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, which you see happening, it says the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. So why? When they control that money through the Federal Reserve, that's exactly what they're doing now. That's why the people are catching hell. It says the issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belonged, Thomas Jefferson. All right. So now that's just letting you know that these devils, they're wise in wickedness. All right. So now it says chapter 9, the new establishment, Jewish. America truly has emerged as a new Babylon and is the vehicle by which the dream of a Jewish utopia, the New World Order, is being utilized to accomplish the fulfillment of that Talmudic agenda by our modern day Pharisees. And that's what they want to do. They want to set up the New World Order based off the Talmud. It has nothing to do with the scriptures. The scriptures is just a guise for them to do that. This is conclusion. Will the house of David reign supreme? No, they sometimes they claim to be the house of David, which they're not, and sometimes they tell the truth, which that they're the Edomites, which that's who they are. The Rothschild dynasty has hijacked the American Republic, and the United States has now been established as a new Babylon. with the New World Order forces relentlessly pushing their agenda at a faster pace than ever before. That's why you have all this legislation and all these things happening and all these riots and protests going on so that they can bring the excuse that they need the right crisis so that they can finally implement their New World Order. It says, ultimate victory they perceive is within their reach, but only if they are able to destroy the opposition and to continue to divide and conquer those who dare to challenge their agenda. As such, the blood and treasure of the American people are being hurled into global conflicts designed to bring the new world order into being. You know, and the money that they're using for these wars and all that is coming right out of the so-called American people's pockets. The wars on behalf of Israeli hegemony in the Middle East are really only the beginning. Many more wars of conquest lie ahead. Those nations that challenge the New World Order will be targeted. In short, Galenter's version of Americanism is not Christianity at all. Rather, it is a modern-day expression of the age-old Babylonian Talmudic dream of a Jewish utopia, them so-called Jews. Global rule over all people by the Jews, so-called Jews. But in today's context, the so-called Jews will use America and Americanism to advance their agenda, which they got from what? From the ancient Roman Empire. Galemter's theory is fully in line with the Jewish philosopher Max Demont's suggestion, reviewed in our opening pages, that America was truly the new focus, it's supposed to be focus, of Jewish power, that America was indeed the new Babylon. In his book, Galenter candidly expressed the contention that the United States, base of what he has called American Zionism, is now charged with the imperial, even God-given duty to remake the world, that Americanism is the creed of the global agenda, that this fourth great Western religion is the driving force behind and which must establish a new planet-wide regime, in short, the New World Order. We are the one and only biggest boy in the world today. If there is to be justice in the world, America must create it. We must pursue justice, help the suffering, and overthrow tyrants. We must spread the creed. All of this reflects the mindset of those who are now dictating American policy in the name of the grand scheme of advancing their global agenda. What it represents is nothing more than the New World Order that genuine American patriots warned about for generations, a scheme that is genuine anti-Americanism in its most basic definition. The end result in the grand scheme is the establishment of a global empire ruled from America, which is now the new foundation, the new Babylon for the Jewish utopia, the New World Order. And that's pretty much what they want to do. They want to establish this so-called New World Order. They want to set themselves up as the superpower of the earth, and they have to use America because that was their basis. All right. Now, let's go from there. And it was all set up through a financial thing, you know, and by setting up this so-called Federal Reserve System and other central banks around the world to control the finances of these nations, to be able to implode and destroy the finances and the economy of these societies, so that they can, so all these nations can finally come to the conclusion is, look, we got to do something about this. We got to get a better economic stance, you know, and then they can bring in their solution, you know, which is that pressure from above, pressure from below. All right. So now I'm going to go from there to the book of Ezekiel 17, which Apostle Tar brought this out years back. We were out at Zuccotti Park. You know, he had did a little lesson on this. I just want to get one particular verse, which is Ezekiel 17:4. Now, when you read this, you know, the scriptures say that the things were written aforetime were written for our learning. Now, this part here is key to what's going on in America, you know, and it happened back then too. But now it's going on in America right now. It says, he cropped off the top of his young twigs and carried it into a land of traffic. That land of traffic is America. He set it in a city of merchants. Now, when you look up that word traffic, the word traffic comes from the word Canaan, which is where you get the word Canaan from, which is lowland. But as you read through here, it also says merchant, trader, because that traffic, or Canaan, the land of Canaan, That's the land of merchants and the land of traders. And America at one time was known as what? The financial capital of the world, pretty much. When they had the Twin Towers down in Manhattan, which controlled the commerce pretty much of the world. Then you have Wall Street, which is trading all different types of stocks from different nations on the planet. So this place is that place of commerce, that land of traffic. And then when you look up the word merchants, it comes from the word rakal. It says to go about, meaning dubious, trafficker, trader, participle. So basically, it's a trafficker or a trader, because this place is the land of merchandise. And that's why all these nations are sending their wares over here to get rich, and who's really benefit? I mean, these nations are benefiting, but who's got the greater benefit? These international bankers. And what they're doing is they're depriving the people, the citizens of their just due, especially Israel. They're the real Israelites I'm talking about. I ain't talking about them gutter rats over there in the land of Israel. I'm talking about the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. That's who they're depriving, really, because Jake is the one that's really doing bad in this society, even though you have other Edomites too that are catching hell. But the nations, they come over here, they do great. They do well. And then when they don't do well, what do? They pack up and they go back home. All right, so now let's go from there to the book of James, the 5th chapter. All right, James chapter 5, and I'll start at 1. Go to now, ye rich men. This is dealing with the international bankers, because they're living it up. They don't have a care in the world. They don't have a pot, not a pot. They don't have a care in the world, pretty much. They don't give a damn about nobody. They living it up. They can jet set around the world. They can eat lunch in Paris and go to Brazil for dinner. And then sleep in the best hotels. They have homes everywhere on the planet. They could get up in the morning if they want to go have breakfast in Hawaii or whatever other exotic island out there is out there. They can do that. It says because why? Because they have ripped off the whole planet. They didn't get that money that they got by hard work and dedication. Like my man Floyd Mayweather, hard work, dedication. No, they got that money by robbing, stealing, deceiving, taking nations' resources, giving people wages through credits, that don't amount to anything. That's why you really can't get ahead. You never could pay off your debt, because you can't pay a debt with a debt, because that debt will always be there. I mean, you could use a credit card to keep paying off another credit card to keep paying off another credit card, but eventually that gravy train is going to run out, and you're going to have to pay that debt somehow, because the debt's not going to go away. It's just going to keep being transferred. So this society, when you work, you're pretty much being given debt-bearing notes that could never really pay your bills. That's why you're always behind the 8 ball, brother from DTA, given all diligence, put Job 21:9. Their houses are safe from fear, neither is the rod of the Most High upon them. That's right. And it's like it, brother. I'm trying to keep up with the comments too, but it's so much going on, that it's just going in the spirit, All right. It says, and then that's a good scripture too. GMS is city and DMV, Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. That's right. Right. And right now I'm reading James, the 5th chapter. It says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Because you just imagine that, man. Here it is. You're a superpower. You own everything. You eat the best of everything. You have the best medical attention. I mean, you have the best clothing. You have tailors make your suits, your shoes. I mean, you have the best women. You don't have a care in the world. You have money. You can do whatever you want. You have the best cars. You have people that drive you around, chauffeurs and all of that. And then you wake up one day and you're a slave. That's what the Lord said, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you, because all of that luxury that they have, they're going to be crying when they lose it. That's why Yahushua spoke about the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. You know, the rich man lost everything, you know, but he was fair. He was fed sumptuously though. He was living it up. He was having a good old time spending that money off of other people's backs. But guess what? You gotta get put down, man. You gotta get put down, milkweed. It says your riches are corrupted. And how are they corrupted? They're rusted. Because when you have corrosion on a car, if you don't take care of that corrosion, what happens? The whole car becomes corroded and eventually it falls apart. And they have no intention on making good everything that they stole. They can't. It's impossible. It says, and your garments are moth-eaten. It says your gold and silver is cankered, is rusted, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. So now what's happening now is that the Lord is slowly but surely chopping away at them through the prophets, through us out there. The prophets are teaching out there and basically chanting this empire down, America, Babylon the Great, you know, like Benjamin likes to say, chant Babylon down, you know, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire, which is the nuclear destruction. And in the nuclear destruction is not going to touch them. The lasers out of Yahushua and the angels' chariots is not going to touch them. What's going to be touched, that's going to be eaten with fire, is all of their riches, all of their goods. It says you have heaped treasure together for the last days. And they have treasures heaped. That's why the scriptures say that our gates are not going to be closed day or night, that the Gentiles, the nations, can bring their riches, you know, from all parts of the world, because the Lord said that the earth was created for our sakes. So we're going to get all of these things, you know. That's why Satan is trying to come down so hard on brothers, because of the fact that he knows that this place is almost out of here. He knows that he has but a short time. So he's trying to do as much damage as he could. He's trying to go out with a bang, you know. It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth. And then whenever Jake is doing bad, you know, they're crying in their spirit, man. And the Most High hears that. You know, he keeps hearing them cries from all, you know, all over the place. Like when Jim Carrey played the Lord, you know, he kept hearing all those voices, you know, and eventually he was like, you know, he couldn't take it anymore. So the Most High is hearing all of that. Everything's coming to him. You know, all these complaints are coming to him, you know, and eventually what's going to happen? The Lord is going to get tired of Esau's shit, and he's going to put him down. It says, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, not the Lord of Sabbath, but the Lord of Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, the Lord of the armies, you know, and he's going to cause things to happen. It says, you have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. They've been living it up, boy. They've been living lovely and been undisciplined, because they don't have to be disciplined, because they own everything. Like you know, with us, you know, with Jake, you know, you get your check, you got your check. You might get a little, what, $40-$50 extra if you get lucky, you know, and you take that money and you got to spend it wisely, because, you know, say, well, I need to get a shirt, or I need to get some shoes or some kicks, you know. You might need to get something, you know, and then you say, okay, I might want to give me a bottle of your yun, but you have to budget that shit, you know, because if not, before you know it, you spend a little too much, and then you be broke for the week. Come Wednesday, you broke. But these devils, they don't have to do that. They got everything. They're undisciplined. They don't have to be disciplined. You have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he does not resist you. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the book of Isaiah 47 and 7. It says, and thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever. And that's, brother, these devils they don't have a care in the world. They don't, they know that the Most High is coming, but there's so much of a demon that they don't believe that the Most High is going to really take them out, because this has been said over and over again for years, you know. So they said, man, the Most High ain't coming. He don't exist. You know. But that's how demonic these devils are. So that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Now, there's a scripture which I'll get real quick. In the book of Deuteronomy 32, which actually was speaking about Israel. It was actually speaking about Israel, but we know that the things that was speaking about Israel back then applied to Esau now. Deuteronomy 32 and 29. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they will consider their latter end. This was dealing with Israel back then, but now it's dealing with Esau. Because when you go to Lamentations, the 4th chapter, everything that came on us, that cup is going to be turned onto them. So the same way we didn't consider our latter end and we got jacked up, the same way these devils are not considering their latter end, and they're going to get jacked up. It says, neither didst remember the latter end of it. It says, therefore hear now this, thou that are given to pleasures, and these devils are given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, because they don't have to be careful. Which we're going to get some more scriptures on that. That sayest in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. Because these devils do not think that they're going to ever go down. That's why when they set everything up, they set up their sons after them to continue on this so-called legacy. And then their sons teach their sons, and their sons teach their sons to keep it going, because they understand reincarnation. They understand eventually down the line, 3 or 4 generations down the line, they're going to come back right into their power. And they understand that, unlike some other cats that we know. All right. Let's go from there to Luke. Let's go from there to the book of Luke, the 16th chapter. There's one key scripture, one verse that I want to get out of there. Luke 16 and 19. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fed sumptuously every day. That's Esau. That's these international bankers. You know, they're the rich men that's fed sumptuously, and that's dressed in fine linen and in purple and the best of everything. All right. Let's go from there to Revelation 17. These are, a couple of scriptures, this situation about the rich man, living it up. This is Revelation 17, and I'll start at 1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials that talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. This great whore is America. And the reason why this scripture here is key is because through America, these devils became even more rich, because prior to that, they had money, because they were getting money from them different governments back then, different kings. But then when they set up America, they really cornered the market, so to speak. And they really outdid themselves when they took over this place. It says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. That's all, drinking that Babylon juice. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of a fornication, democracy, and the different philosophies and the way that they set up their empire and their country. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman, which this woman represents America, sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. That scarlet-colored beast is NATO, the EU, Rome, all of that. And America is sitting on top of them. Why? Because they're the ones that's really carrying them, because America's on the forefront, but who's really backing everything? It's Europe, so-called Europe, full of names of blasphemy, which they say that they're the Most High, they're Yahushai, they're the angels, they're the people of the Lord and all of that, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And this is the point. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color. So America is arrayed in purple and scarlet color because this is the beacon of light for the whole world. And how does that tie into the international bankers? Because they're the ones that's living lovely. They're living off the backs, in the sweat, in the tears, in the blood of everybody else on the planet, through America. and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in a hand full of abominations and filthiness of a fornication, which was set up by these international bankers, because they're the ones that control all the laws that are out there. Did not Maya Angelou say, "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws"? Well, I mean, you don't have to believe it. Somebody said, "How do you know?" Though I am listening, but it sounds kind of far fetched. Hey, well, the scriptures say, "What if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of the Most High without effect?" No, so either you have the unction of the Lord to understand it and believe it, because what did the scriptures say? Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Most High. So either you accept it because the Lord opens up your mind, or you don't accept it because the Lord closed your mind. Did not the Lord say that eyes have they and they see not, and ears have they and they hear not? So if you can't get it, that means the Lord didn't open up your mind to get it. So my thing to you is either keep listening, maybe it might hit you depending on who you are. I don't know if you're an Israelite or Edomite or whatever. And if not, and if you are Israelite, maybe the spirit will hit you. But if not, then keep it moving. We're not trying to convince you. What's written is already written. So either you accept the Lord's word or you don't. Now, how the hell is it far-fetched that these international bankers control the whole world? When they control the whole world, they control everything financially. So an idiot would say that they can't see that, because the ones that are governing and controlling everything through the central banks are the Rothschilds, and the Rockefellers and all of them. So I mean, if you don't know about that history, then you I don't know, you must be well, you say you believe the word. Well, we're going through the scriptures and showing you that America is Babylon the Great. Matter of fact, the same chapter I'm reading here, Revelation 17:1, it says, I'm going to read this. It says, "And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." Now the many waters, when you jump down to the 15th verse, it says, "And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." So in other words, this woman, this whore, would be sitting upon all of these people. Now, is not America considered the melting pot? Now, what does it mean by a melting pot? Why was America called a melting pot? The reason why America was called the melting pot, because it was a place where all these different nations that spoke different languages came from and gathered as one. Now, those different languages, as we broke down earlier, when you go back to Genesis, the 11th chapter, the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. But then when the Lord confounded the languages that they didn't understand one another's speech, he said that he called that place Babel, which the word Babel from the Hebrew word Babel means confusion. So now if you have a country that is set up as a melting pot with people of all different languages and customs and all that, that's going to be nothing but confusion. There's a conglomeration of confusion. See? And if this is your first time hearing about this, you're not going to get this overnight. Like I said, I don't know if you're Israelite. I don't know if you're Edomite. I don't know if you're another. I don't know who you are, But if it's meant for you, you're going to stick with it and listen and hear. And if not, then, there's nothing else that could be done, So you could sit back, listen and take notes and do your own research. And now when you jump down to the bottom, that particular woman, because we read in the 4th verse, it says, "And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color." Now this woman, when you read down the 18th verse, it says, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth." And when you look on a scale today, America is in control of pretty much the whole world. They're the ones that dictate to everybody. They're a member of NATO, but whatever America says stands. So America is that hegemony, or that governing body, that place, or that governing body that rules over the entire planet Earth. And if it's not America that's governing and ruling the whole planet, who is it? That's the sole purpose that the international bankers set up America, was to catapult their so-called New World Order. That's why on the back of the dollar bill you have an Egyptian pyramid with Latin writing, and then you have on the other side you have the eagle, and then the talons of the eagle has a ribbon, and the ribbon says "E pluribus unum," out of many one. And then on the other side it says "Novus Ordo Seclorum," which is the New World Order. So pretty much the reason why America was set up, which was set up by the international bankers like the Rothschilds, so on and so forth, the Oppenheimers, they set it up to be able to catapult their New World Order, and everything is falling in line as they've planned. You know, and that's scripture. All right. So now, going back to verse 4, it says, "And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color." And you know what? When the French Freemason, the Orient, French Freemason Orient, or however it's the French Freemasons, when they set up the Statue of Liberty, which they gave to America, which represents Libertas, and that's a whole nother story. They when they were first going to put it out in the harbor, they wanted to paint it in purple and scarlet color, but the problem was that because it was copper first, the problem was that the corrosion and the salt and all that from the water, the paint wouldn't work out there. So that's why they left it copper, and that's why today it's green, because copper, when it's left out in the elements, it turns green. But they wanted, when they first set it up, they wanted to set it up as and paint it purple and scarlet color, you know. And there's different little clues here and there, you know, but it's up to the Lord to find if not. Okay, so now it says, "And decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of a fornication." And that's Esau through the international bankers that are receiving these riches. So this woman that John saw represents this place, America, that the international bankers use to get all these dainties, all these delicacies, all these riches, you know, and they have gotten the riches pretty much of the world. Now, when you go to Psalms, the 73rd chapter, I'm read a couple of verses there. Psalm 73, and I'll hit a few points. Psalm 73:3. "For I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked." This is King David speaking about in these latter times, because this actually was a prophecy for later on, of the rich. And who's the most richest people on the planet Earth today? The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Oppenheimers, you know, and other Fortune 500 families that control the whole globe pretty much. And jumping down to the 7th and 8th verse, it says, "Their eyes stand out with fatness," because these international bankers, they got the wealth of the world. They have more than heart could wish. They have no want for anything. It says, "They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily." Why? Because they have all the riches of the world. But the riches of the world, the way they got it was through thievery. They got it through treachery. They got it through deception. They got it through taking people's lands, taking people's resources, you know, taking over people's the monetary system of a particular government, setting up the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, you know, occupying certain lands, setting up American bases on these lands, all in the name of the international bankers. But they're not going to come out there and tell you. You got to do the research. All right, now let's go from there. I wanted to look up the word oppression in the 8th verse, and the word oppression comes from the Hebrew word ishak, which means oppression, extortion, and that's pretty much what it is. It's extortion, injury. It's pretty much gained by extortion, and that's how they got got the world by extortion. Because if you look at the way the Federal Reserve System is set up, it's set up through a thing called usury, which is inflation. I'm sorry, not inflation, which is usury, which is just bear with me 1 second. Can't think of the word right now. It'll come back to me. Can't think of the word right now. It'll, like I said, it'll come to me. Just bear with me. But it's through an interest. The water brothers, brother put interest. That's the word, interest. So interest pretty much is usury, and according to the scriptures, you're not supposed to charge interest. If you lend somebody money, it was because they were in need. You know, you lend your brother money, it's because he was in need. If he's in need, he's supposed to pay you back the money that you lent him. He's not supposed to pay you extra, because the reason why he borrowed the money from you in the first place is because he needed it. He was poor. So if you charge him usury or interest, pretty much he's never going to get out that hole. And that's what's happening here with this central bank called the Federal Reserve, and all these different central banks throughout the world that the international bankers hold. You know. All right. So now, it's verse 12. Let me see. It says verse 12. It says, "Behold, these are the ungodly who prosper in the world. They increase in riches." And who's that? Come on, man. That's a dead giveaway right there. Behold, these are the ungodly who prosper in the world. They increase in riches, meaning that these international bankers are the ungodly, because they say you'll go to court. They'll make you swearing on the Bible and say, "In God we trust." And then what happens? Once you do that, they'll throw the Bible behind your back or behind their back, and then they'll bring out their own penal code. So they don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments of the Lord. So they're the ungodly. They don't believe in the Most High. They just use the Bible, for their benefit. Because people really think that if you see the Bible and they say, "In God we trust," that they're going to really do the right thing. They're not going to do the right thing. They're the devil, man. You think the devil's going to do the right thing? This is Psalms 50 and 16. It says, "But unto the wicked the Most High saith," who's the wicked? The Edomites, the so-called white man. "But unto the wicked the Most High saith, What hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth?" What is the statutes of the Lord, and the covenant? That's dealing with the Bible. So the Lord is saying, "Why are you taking up my Bible? Why are you taking up my words? Seeing thou hatest instructions and castest my word behind thee." You're not going to uphold the laws of the Bible, because if you would uphold the laws of the Bible, you would start by putting homosexuals and lesbians and transgenders and all that to death. Because according to the Bible, homosexual, if two men have sex, they're supposed to be put to death. They're not supposed to be given rights, but in this society, they're given rights. And if you call them if you drop the F-bomb on them, they can hit you with a hate crime. You can have a fight with somebody in the street. They could charge you with a felony. You might get locked up for a little bit. But if you beat down a homosexual, they can hit you with a hate crime. So this society is about protecting homosexuals, because that's part of the religion of the New World Order, is homosexuality. All right. So now I'm gonna get ready to close it up. I have a whole bunch more scriptures. I'll see, if I could go through a couple more, but I mean, the point is pretty much been made, that America is Babylon the Great. America, Babylon the Great is also connected with Edom or Esau, which is a so-called white man. Edom or Esau is said to be the last empire or ruler on the planet Earth, and when he goes down, that's it. It's done. It's finished. Let me see. Yeah, what? I'm pretty much gonna end it there. And the Lord's will, I could do a part 2 to this, because it's been about almost 2 hours, since that we've been going into this. So with that, I hope you brothers have been edified. Hope you brothers learned something. Lord's will, I could come back and do a part 2 to this, and finish out the rest of these scriptures if it be Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's will. And with that, I say shalom, and I hope you brothers learned something, and I hope you brothers been edified. Shalom.